Good morning, folks. It is such a pleasure to be here. I'm Naomi Robert. I'm here with my colleague, Michael, and we have the pleasure of just giving some context and some process and our experience with this emerging community of practice that we're the Pacific Coastal Dry Farming Collaborative, a little bit further north than where most folks are joining from us. Next slide, please. I'm calling in from the traditional unceded territories of the Comox people, colonially known as the Comox Valley. We're about halfway up Vancouver Island, and want to express my gratitude to the traditional stewards of this land, referred to as the land of plenty, and the role of the Comox people in stewarding this land for abundance since time immemorial. Slide, please. So Mike and I we work at KPU at the Institute for Sustainable Food Systems. We're an applied research and extension unit at KPU, and we work on advancing regional food systems and supporting particularly small farmers, regenerative agriculture, as well as working on data and information to understand the impacts of regional food systems socially, economically, and ecologically. We certainly don't have time to talk about all of that work. What we are focusing on is specifically our work around dry farming and our collaboration with OSU. Slide, please. So there are three things we're going to briefly chat about. The changing conditions on Vancouver Island, which I'm sure will be not news to folks, as well as the work we've started in this emerging community of practice. And then Mike's going to talk about our dry farming trials that we're planning for this season. Slide, please. Okay, changing conditions on Vancouver Island. Next slide. So this is where we are. Climate-wise, slightly different than folks in Oregon and Corvallis. There's a fair amount of variation across the island, annually ranging from about 800 millimeters to 1,500 millimeters. Daytime summer temperatures, traditionally most between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius. There's a conversion for folks if we're not all bilingual. I'm not, I don't speak Fahrenheit, but the southern part receiving less annual precipitation, sort of in the rain shadow of the Olympic range, and quite a lot of variability throughout the coast of the island. Slide, please. Most of the agricultural area and the human population, not coincidentally, is on the southeastern portion of the island, so between Victoria and Campbell River. So I am located in the northern portion of that orange oval, and Michael is down towards the south, closer to Victoria. Slide, please. There is a large diversity of agriculture on Vancouver Island, a lot of pasture, livestock, dairy, as well as market gardens, berries, a diversity of horticultural crops, most of which operating on smaller farms. Slide, please. So the climate is changing. We are experiencing longer, more frequent hot days. The summer precipitation is less than what we have been used to in the past, longer dry periods, less snowpack in the winter, which for us is extremely important. That snowpack in the mountains is really what provides a lot of water in the streams later in the summer, and the snowpack is melting earlier and faster than traditionally. We're receiving more precipitation when we look at the whole year, but most of that is falling, or the change we're seeing is in extreme events over the winter. Slide, please. So this is a map of the province of British Columbia according to the provincial drought rating system. You don't have to pay too much attention to exactly what the legend is, but the summer of 2023, we had a pretty remarkable drought. Drought conditions have been increasing significantly over the past decade or so, but the dark crimson is level 5, which the province on their scale is the highest level of drought, the most concerning for ecological and economic impacts. And by the end of the summer in 2023, we can see most of BC was in that level 5 drought, including all of Vancouver Island. And as we know, slide please, that this is extremely challenging conditions for agriculture, particularly compared to what farmers locally are used to. Number of challenges, one of which was water and irrigation access. This is a photo of taken where I live up island. a farmer's sort of irrigation pond that had gone dry by the end of August. So farmers were experiencing, among other things, water scarcity issues from wells and irrigation ponds going dry, or from instances when the province had to suspend irrigation licenses because stream flow was too low for in protection of fish habitat. Slide, please. So after that summer, we organized a farmer dialogue locally where I am in the Comox Valley to talk about drought resilience and understanding farmers' priorities around how to build more resilience for drought, what type of research and extension work would be helpful. Then we asked farmers these 3 questions. How is drought affecting your land and farming? What are your on-farm needs to improve resilience? And what kind of watershed-wide priorities can we prioritize and pinpoint? So slide, please. This was published in summarized, and we published it in this report that's been used in a number of engagement activities. And one of the things for research and extension that came out from this meeting was farmers are particularly interested in whole farm approaches to drought resilience. So above and beyond irrigating efficiently, what can be done at a whole farm scale? What are the suite of practices we can employ? Dry farming, this is how we connected with OSU and the Dry Farming Collaborative to understand what kind of work we could do on an extension front. And there's a link to this also on the website if folks are interested in this publication. Slide, please. So that brings us to OSU. We can go to the next one. We reached out to OSU the end of 2023 after this dialogue, and have been working with them. They've been sharing their journey establishing and creating this community of practice around dry farming, which has been really invaluable for our community moving forward. We met with this bunch of our local partners here in the Comox Valley Farmers Institutes to kind of understand in early February what was OSU's journey, and they gave us some really helpful feedback and places to start with establishing this type of extension work. Lucas held the Dry Farming Basics webinar with us in early April. We had a couple workshops around site suitability, soil health, and soil moisture in May and then October, and began working with the Ministry of Agriculture as a funding partner in August. And now we're planning some dry farming trials coming up for this summer, which Mike's going to talk about in a moment. Slide, please. So the first site suitability workshop, we were thrilled to host Andy Gallagher, a soil scientist who does work with the group at OSU and the Dry Farming Institute. He came up to the Comox Valley. We visited 3 different farms. He pulled a huge soil core, and we talked about the different soil horizons, moisture holding capacity, how soil moves through the profile, and local farmers were really excited about this. A lot of interest in how we can understand the applicability of these practices to our soils and our climate. Slide, please. We held another workshop in October as well, talking about, again, soil moisture holding capacity, site suitability, as well as how to use some in-field practical tests for soil health, bulk density, aggregate stability, that kind of thing. And yeah, got our hands dirty on that day in October. Slide, please. And now we are, now we're working on some dry farming trials for this coming summer. Next slide, please. We're working with 3 farmers across the island. They are located broadly in these spots. You can move to the next slide, please. We have Yellow Boot Farm in Black Creek, up where I am in the Comox Valley with Jacqueline Kirby, Tardigrade Seeds on Salt Spring Island, which is an extension of the San Juan Islands and past the Canadian border. We call them the Gulf Islands, on Salt Spring with Sky Larmore, and then Lisa Willett, who's just north of Victoria in the South Island, who does seed trials, among other things, with the Sandown Center for Regenerative Agriculture. This is our team of farmers we're working with for trials this summer. You can go to the next slide, please. And then I'll pass it off to my colleague, Mike, who's going to talk a little bit about how those trials are structured and what we're hoping to achieve with them.
Hi, folks. I'm Michael Robinson, also with the ISFS at KPU. So broadly, we have a kind of set of specific goals for our 2025 trials. Those, were new to the dry farming practice up here, kind of as Naomi mentioned, kind of following that 2023 drought year, and that has really sparked our interest. So for our 2025 trials, we have the goal of developing an understanding of the opportunities and limitations of dry farming for kind of market garden farming and production in South Coastal BC. We're hoping to improve our understanding of why cultivation practices will be successful or were not successful in this 2025 year, and how to improve some of our thinking and methodology for following years. And we're also hoping to demonstrate successful crop production using dry farming practices. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, but it's a less familiar term up here. We get a lot of blank stares when we say dry farming. So we're hoping to have a selection of demonstrated success up and down the island that we can use to kind of introduce this idea to the broader regenerative farming community. So that being said, we've chosen 3 different crops that we're going to be trialing this year. The goals really were simplicity, so limited varieties and limited crops, keep things simple. We wanted an area people could walk in, see the crops, and understand kind of what it means to dry farm. We wanted common market crops, so things that could easily slot into current market streams. So looking to support farmers who already had a developed market, but were being impacted by drought or having their irrigation water at risk. Next slide, please. So we chose dry beans as one of our crops. I think it was an easy choice here. We have some local varieties that are being bred in the region. One of those we've selected as the Orca variation. We're also going to be working with beefy resilient Grex. We have a slightly shorter season up here. It can be challenging to get dry beans out of the field sometimes as we have that early fall moisture. We're hoping that we can demonstrate the success of these dry beans and getting them out of the field in time. Next slide. Our second crop kind of family that we're trialing is tomatoes. I think it's kind of an iconic crop. It has a high value potential for farmers. So, new farmers who maybe were worried they couldn't dry or farm tomatoes might be able to have that high value crop and help build their farms and markets. We've, based on some of the work OSU has done, chosen some varieties, both grafted and non-grafted, that we would like to trial. So Spring King. We've also been working with a local tomato breeder, Karen Olivier. So O Canada is one of her varieties, and then a couple other there on Fortamino rootstock. Next slide.
Prescriptions from my wife, Susan Les.
Finally, we're going to be doing a couple cucurbits, so summer squash and winter squash. Again, these are staple crops at market and CSA up here. Getting some of the winter squash out of the field can sometimes be challenging, again, because of our shorter season. Hoping that we can demonstrate kind of success, maybe a denser crop with improved storage disease outcomes here as well. Next slide, please. So a few things that we're going to be collecting. So soil data, looking at robust soil profiles and soil health metrics on our demonstration sites to help understand how our soils interact with dry farming. A little bit more granulated climate data, including rainfall and humidity and light for each of our sites as well. Going to be doing yield calculations, keeping those fairly simple for our farmers so we don't burden them too heavily with data collection needs. And we're really also trialing farming practices here, so taking robust notes on each of these farmers' unique ways that they farm their land and how those interact with dry farming practices in our region. Yeah, so that's broadly speaking our demonstration trials for this year. Trying to keep it pretty simple. Yeah, and get some good info, hopefully.
Thanks, Mike. We're working with a number of partners. I mentioned the BC Ministry of Agriculture, but also building really a broad-based coalition across the island for this community of practice. These are some of the organizations that we've been able to partner with, but we're always talking with more, whether it be hosting workshops, being involved for the local farm institutes perspective, or a number of other ways to collaborate as a community of practice. Slide, please. This is it. I like to end with a picture of a fish to remind us that we have land-based interest, and many of us work on the land, but what we do has impacts for the ecosystem as a whole. So really these place-based ways of provisioning food bring the whole ecosystem together and be good stewards of the places that we call home. You can reach us here. These are our emails. This is also our website.
Thank you so much to both the presenters. And we have just a brief moment here for questions. So I'm going to go through the chat and just put voice to a couple of questions that are in there. And if we don't get to all the questions at this time, then presenters are welcome to kind of look at the chat and answer if you feel comfortable, or we'll circle back when we have a bit more time. So the first question is from Sky, and that is, in the presenters' views, what would need to happen for dry farming to become a common practice amongst gardeners and small farmers?
Hey, Sky. I think we need to demonstrate success, viability. I think farmers need to see things and understand how their colleagues are going about it, and to see it as a viable option. So thanks for participating, Sky.
Thank you so much. And the next question is from Todd. In your region, are most of the island producers targeting on-island markets, or is produce being targeted for larger communities like the Vancouver, BC metro area?
Yeah, so it is kind of a question of scale. Some of the larger farms do export into other communities in British Columbia, but smaller farms definitely have more of a presence focused on island. Shipping off the island is by ferry, so it's incredibly expensive. So yeah, it's largely a question of scale. Most of the farmers we're working with are focused on island communities and local purchasing.
Thank you. And I'm just going to do one more because I just need a little clarification. Roberta asked, how can we become a testing site? Just purchased 9.5 acres of raw land with epic soil conditions for dry farming. Roberta, are you able to say where you're located just so we can determine which testing site?
Oh, hey, honey, wash day. Good morning. Yeah, it's in Corbett, Oregon. So I just realized that I jumped the gun. I was gonna, yeah, but we're in Corbett, Oregon, in our area.
Thanks, Roberta. Yeah, we can circle back with you on that question.